general, I like to keep the show and tells under 15 minutes, but Sky Guardian had asked so kindly if we could extend that for a friend of his named Paul, who wanted to share something really important that changed in their life in a video that they made, and it's about 30 minutes long, and it's titled Paul's Miserable Christmas in New York City, which already sounds like it's going to be a banger. Paul had also sent in a little blurb, which is that Sky Guardian had requested he share it, and Paul apologizes that it's 30 minutes long. Very kind. Do with it what you will. I was sharing my story in hopes that people don't feel as lonely this holiday season. And if people want to find me, they can search for Paul Yu on YouTube. That's U-Y-U. That's funny to say. U-Y-U. The letters. Well, the word U, Y-O-U. But the name is spelled Y-U. Anyway, who's on first? Let me turn down the Christmas music and bring up the show and tell from Dear Paul. And this will be the first time that I see it too, so I very much look forward to watching this with you and you.
Christmas or any holidays are a tough time for a lot of people, especially for those who are alone. If you are lucky like me to have family or someone special to celebrate it with, it can be a joyful time, but it can also be a miserable, lonely time to those who don't have that this Christmas. It's cheesy to say, you're not alone, you are loved. And many people would say, that's just not true. But it is true that you are not alone in feeling what you are feeling. You are one of millions sharing a similar lonely experience this holiday. And at this point, that's the end of my script. And I'm going to share with you a lonely Christmas that I had when I was living in New York City back in 2013. And while I do that,
11 years
I'm going
ago.
to eat some just freshly baked sweet potatoes from California, although I'm
He's
living
eating
in
me.
Toronto, Canada. They were air fried, so they're nice and warm. And
No,
I'll tell
you
my
don't eat
story
me.
of some of the darkest times in my 20s. So the reason I was in New York City back in 2013 was because I was doing a co-op for my university, which is an internship.
I think,
And, oh, this is really sweet. Nice.
I'm glad it's very sweet. 1 second. I am just going to turn up the Christmas music. I think I had turned it down just in case there was any, but I think it'll still work. Just before he gets started with the story, as he's eating a yam. Well, a sweet potato. Anyway. Oh, I forgot to turn the Christmas music on. I went over. I just closed it. There we are. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Onwards.
Thanks. I got an internship in Brooklyn. And lo and behold, the reason I applied to that so far away, well, an hour flight away from home, is I have an uncle who lives in Brooklyn. And he said I could stay with him during my whole 4-month period of co-op. And I got the job. So September of 2013, I flew to New York City. And initially I was having a blast.
That yam looks so good.
God,
or
this
sweet
is so
potato.
good. I usually don't eat past 6 p.m. because it's bad to eat right before you sleep or 3 hours before you sleep. Right now it's 8:32 p.m. and it just doesn't taste the same when it's cold, you know? So I am having a guilty pleasure tonight. Probably not gonna get as good quality of sleep because of the food, but let me get back to my story.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was initially in New York City back in September of 2013, I was busy doing everything that I could do in New York City because there's so much to do, right? So I remember I'm a big tennis fan. I bought tickets to the US Open semifinals. I remember the ticket price was like $250 for a seat way, way back in the stadium. And the players who were Djokovic and Yuzny for that match, it was so tiny. It looked like the court was about this size to my eyes because I was that far away. But I digress. I watched Stomp again, which I watched Stomp back in Korea. It's just for those of you who don't know Stomp, it's a performance where you make beats and rhythms using everyday objects like broomsticks and even lighters. That was a super cool experience because it was visual too.
Yeah, they came to my school when I was younger.
Music.
I remember seeing them too.
Just a beat. It was incredible. And I was really enjoying my time with fellow university students who came from my Waterloo University and were all in New York City together, working for different companies. We would meet up, we would have these group gatherings, and they even celebrated my birthday with me because my birthday is in September. And I was like, wow, I am so blessed. I'm so lucky to be having such a great time in New York City. But little did I know that would all turn around in about a month or two. So I remember the moment that this happened, where something shifted inside me. I was really enjoying my time, spending time with my uncle in New York City. He's just a cool, chill dude, and so worldly and knowledgeable about a lot of things. Really easy to have just great conversations with. And we were driving back from grocery shopping on the weekend, getting our haircut together at Queens, and we were having a conversation about God, and it was, at one point he said, if you are an atheist, then it's all the more amazing that this world exists, because that means there was no creator and this happened all of its own accord. So to an atheist, more than any religious person, this world is that much more incredible and amazing that anything like this exists. And at that point, it's weird to say, but it felt like I had an inner person that was on a cliff, and I just fell off the cliff. And I got a sinking feeling. And from then on, my days got very dark. And that won't make any sense to you, why that would happen. And I don't even know exactly why. Maybe to give you a bit more backstory, a year before going to New York City, I had my first manic episode, which is what happens. I was diagnosed with bipolar type 1 in 2012 when I was 21 years old. And during that severe manic episode, psychosis, where you're believing things that are not true, I had delusions about God and being some fifth prophet. And I thought I got rid of all those delusions. And maybe I did for the most part, but subconsciously, I was clinging on to something, that I was somewhat special and had some kind of special role to play in this life of mine. It wasn't at the forefront of my belief, but maybe I was still holding on to the significance that I have some special destiny that'll unfold for the rest of my life. And that's my guess. I don't even know for sure if that's why I felt like I was falling off a cliff. But I was thinking, I just got set with this dread. And with that dread, that maybe there is no God to... Everything was a delusion, and I'm just crazy, and I'm just making everything up. When I got that feeling of, okay, maybe there is no God, that I was still somewhat subconsciously believing into at the time. With that realization, I got this dread of a future where I'm living all alone, and I am lonely and miserable old man with nobody, and I'll just be a lonely old miserable man for the rest of my life. And I couldn't shake this future projection dread feeling. I couldn't shake it off. To me, over the coming days and weeks and even months, it became so certain to me that I was going to live a lonely, miserable old man's life. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. So, as I said, it's difficult to explain why that sentence from my uncle got me to that place. It probably had, as I said, something to do with my bipolar delusions that were subconscious. But I don't even know, that's just my guess. So, ever since that moment, I think it was in October or November, it was a 4-month period that I was going to stay in New York. So I was going to head back to Toronto at end of December or early January. And I just got worse and worse and worse as the days went on. So, initially, I was trying to shake it off. I was like, you know, I didn't even acknowledge that I felt that way. I was like, everything's fine. I'm so lucky at this point. What am I complaining about? I have everything going for me. I'm young. I'm doing a co-op in New York City. How many people get to do that and live with their cool uncle and not pay rent? Like, I'm living a dream life right now. Why am I getting depressed every day? And so at the beginning, I was faking it. I was faking cheerful. I was faking being happy around people. And it wasn't working. The dread just kept getting bigger and bigger. I no longer wanted to do anything. I didn't want to go to all these events. I didn't want to look up what to do next. I started coming home, and I started getting back pain at that time too. It was really bad to the point where it was so painful to sit down, and the only thing I could do was really lie down to try and minimize the back pain, but I would still feel back pain while I was lying down. I don't even know what caused that back pain, but I would just come home. It's dark outside. I would eat something, maybe some vegetables that I whipped up for myself, just put it in a pan with some oil.
This is a video. Some of you are thinking this is live. This is a video. Just that clarifying.
Salt and pepper. Sometimes not even that. Sometimes I just have like probably some pantry food, like a can of almonds or something. I would just come home after work and lie down on a mat where I was sleeping upstairs and just lay there. And then my uncle would come home from his work and I'd just say, "Oh, hello, uncle." And I'd just say, "Oh, I just feel back pain, so I'm lying down," which was true, but it was also because I was depressed. And so I would just lay down all evening, feeling miserable, and I started wishing that I would not wake up tomorrow morning, that I would just fall asleep and stay asleep and dead forever. And at this point, the faking it was wearing off and I couldn't really fake it anymore. I was trying to fake it, but I was failing at faking it at this point when weeks passed. And so even people started noticing it. My uncle obviously noticed it. He was like, if you're feeling down, you got to focus on the small things that you can control. Get sunlight. Sunlight directly has an impact on your mood. Always walk as much as possible when you can during breaks to get some sunlight. Get some sunlight while you're at work during lunchtime. So I started going walks during lunch, just a short walk to get a bit of sun on my skin. Even one of my coworkers, when we were having, like, I forget if it was at a bar or something after work, he was like, I noticed you were very cheerful when you first arrived, and then at some point you just started losing some energy, and I was wondering if you're okay. And I didn't know even how to articulate what I was feeling. So I just said, "Oh, I just feel this dread of I don't know what to do after I graduate." And then he gave a standard good answer of like, "Oh, you don't have to know what you're going to do now. Things will unfold and you'll figure things out." Something like that. But that wasn't even the main issue. It wasn't that I didn't know what I was going to do after I graduate. It was that I felt like I was trapped and gonna have a miserable life no matter what I did. And this dread was so certain that I was never gonna escape this horrible life unless I... And so, that'll probably be censored by... That'll probably be censored. Unalive myself. Unless I unalive myself. I'm trying to not get it censored. So I never got to a suicidal point, but I was wishing that I was. I guess I was wishing that I was not alive anymore. So I stopped spending that much time with other people going to... Well, I mean, at the same time, there were still moments where I was still invited to things sometimes. And like I was invited to the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. My coworker had extra tickets. And he's like, "Yo, someone couldn't make it. Do you want to come to the Daily Show with Jon Stewart?" And I used to watch him at the time. I still do sometimes these days. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to go." And I remember I went to the Daily Show, the live, performance, or I don't know if it's called performance, but it's a comedy news show, for those of you who don't know what the Daily Show is, in front of a live audience. And everyone was laughing and having a good time with all the jokes. And I was fake laughing, but I was just miserable on the inside and couldn't enjoy any of the jokes. Even though I was hearing it, it just wasn't funny to me because it didn't make a difference to how I felt. So I got addicted to eating at this point. I started walking around the city during my free time, during my weekends, by myself, alone, the streets of New York, and if I saw anything that I wanted to eat, I would go in and buy it and try a small piece of it or whatever, hopefully something small, because I wanted to just like binge eat a lot of different stuff. When I was eating food and I could taste something in my mouth, that was the only thing that kind of distracted me from my horrible, dreadful feeling of an inevitable, miserable future. So I started gaining weight. And it was just a downward spiral. The walking around didn't help. I was just walking around. I remember just some weekends I would walk around from morning or afternoon all the way till evening after the sunset. And I just see all these people around me having a good time, usually with people, and they're laughing, and there are these Christmas markets popping up everywhere, and all this cheerful music, and I just felt so dreadful in the midst of all that. And so my co-op ended. It was December. It was the Christmas holidays. And my mom and sister drove from Toronto, Canada, to New York City to pick me up. And even after not seeing them for like 4 months, I didn't feel that much joy reuniting with them.
He's got another one.
I was just in such a depressed state when I met them. Even eating dim sum on Christmas Day with my mom, my uncle, my sister, I was smiling for the photos and all that, but I was just totally miserable inside. Man, I'm dragging the story on so long. It's 20 minutes in already. So what was the conclusion? What happened? Because clearly I'm not depressed right now. 11 years later.
How can you be?
There was a lot that happened in that time, but to conclude the arc of my depressive Christmas holidays, I came back to Toronto after the end of co-op. I was home again, and I just lay in bed, depressed, all day. Every day. And I hopped on another call with my uncle who was back in New York and did a video call or a voice call, I can't remember, but he said, your physical health has a direct impact on your mental health. So focus on what you can control by taking care of your physical health. So again, he said, go outside. I don't care if you run or walk, but get outside every single day. Get sunlight. Eat healthy, because what you eat directly affects your mood. If you eat like shit, you'll feel like shit. So eat healthy food. And And I talked to one of my university friends. And he said, it's actually a brother of my closest friend at that time in university. And I told him my biggest fear of, I have this fear that I'm going to be a miserable old lonely man. And he said, you don't know that. He said, you think that fear is so guaranteed that it's inevitable, but you really don't know that. And there are things you can do along the way to prevent that from happening. So don't worry about the distant future and focus on just today, and just think, today, what can I do to make myself better than I was yesterday? And just focus on today. Don't think about the future, because you don't know what's going to happen. All you can do is focus on what you're going to do today. So I started thinking, okay, I'll try not to think about the future. Maybe he's right. Maybe I won't be lonely, although it seems like I will be. And I started taking it day by day. I started going for walks. Even after I came back, I would get sunlight, step outside, no matter how cold it was. And lo and behold, it took months, but I started feeling a bit better. And then a few months later, in April, I went manic because of my bipolar type 1. I was off my medication when I was forgetting to take them while I was on a Korea-Japan trip. At that time, it wasn't intentional to get off medication. It was just, I forgot to take it multiple days in a row. And usually I don't get triggered that fast into mania, but I guess environment also triggers mania. So maybe all the new environment and being in such a different place, all that stimulation had a trigger effect. So within a few weeks, I went from normal to severely manic again and severely mentally ill. And so that was a really bad rest of the year until I got out of the psych ward and hospital in November. That was like 6 months in and out of the psych ward. I will tell you a silver lining though, even during that horrible, hellish, miserable time of my mania. I met a friend at the outpatient program. I call him John. And he also was diagnosed with bipolar type 1. And we just bonded. And he is still a friend to this day, 11 years later. Well, at the time it was 2014, so exactly 10 years later. So we've been friends for 10 years now. I'm just so blessed to have a friend like that in my life. So you never know when it's not like there's a silver lining for every tragic event, but I got a lifelong friend from that horrible time of mania in 2014. So in a way, I'm glad that I went through all that. And now I believe a completely different set of beliefs from 10 years ago. Now I believe everything is turning out as it should. That I ought to say, thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Whenever something good happens or whenever something bad happens, I repeat that to myself. Thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. And that your world takes care of you. I repeat that to myself again whenever something good happens or bad happens. I affirm to myself, your world takes care of you. And I believe these beliefs, these mantras, these affirmations that I say to myself, that I got from books, are not necessarily a universal truth, but they're a practical truth. And that the more you affirm those beliefs, the more you move in a positive direction.
Sorry for the buffering. Unexpected error occurred. Sorry about that, everyone. Let me see what I can do quickly. I know it can be frustrating when that happens, especially for a story which we're
Christmas
so invested
or
in.
any holiday.
There. Let me find my way back to where we were now. Let's see, we were about here?
Not necessarily a universal truth, but they're a practical truth, in that the more you affirm those beliefs, it takes care of you.
There.
I repeat that to myself again whenever something good happens or bad happens. I affirm to myself, your world takes care of you. And I believe these beliefs, these mantras, these affirmations that I say to myself that I got from books are not necessarily a universal truth, but they're a practical truth, in that the more you affirm those beliefs, the more you move in a positive direction. So those truths may not seem real, but if you affirm those truths, they become more real than they ever would than if you didn't say any of that and you were just in a dreadful, depressed state and not being grateful, practicing gratitude on a daily basis. So, to wrap it up, 2013, 2014, some of the darkest times in my life. I would have more dark times after that. My 20s was not a good decade. I'm 34 years old now, and my 30s are way better than my 20s. And I'm an unemployed 34-year-old living with my mom, but I am more grateful than I ever have been in my life. It has just been a long journey to get to this point. And I don't know if sharing this story helps in your current state, whether you're not having a good time these holidays or whether you are having a good time. Maybe you feel less alone when I share what I've gone through. Maybe you feel like, okay, things can and do get better given enough time and effort. Yeah, things like depression, it can take years, maybe even decades, to overcome, but just because you're going through what you're going through now doesn't mean that'll be the permanent state forever and ever until you die. I just wanted to say that one message. And I was wrong. My 22-year-old, 23-year-old self in New York City, just looking at my 30s, I'm not an old man yet, but the future has been brighter than I ever would have imagined in terms of my mental health, in terms of my happiness. So even if you're lonely, well, maybe that's not how it will be permanently for your entire rest of your future. Man, I was tearing up just now, just getting choked up. I don't even know why. I don't know if it was because of my own experience or because I was imagining all of the people who are lonely and I was feeling empathy. I don't even know why I was tearing up for a second there, but
it happens.
This video is being posted 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Christmas Day, 2024. But maybe this video will find you at a later date. Probably will, because it takes time for the video to pick up views. Maybe it's New Year's. So in that case, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Cheers. By the way, if you can buy and bake some sweet potatoes, especially if they're sweet, these are from California, but got them at a Korean grocery store. So good. It's cooled down now, but oh, it's sweet and it's so good, man. Merry Christmas, everyone. And if you're watching this in the new year, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Paul, you. Chug, chug, chug.
Oh. It is 9 p.m. now. Gotta get ready for bed. I hope this video made you feel less lonely if you are feeling lonely at this time. And remember that you're not the only one going through what you're going through. There are other people who feel the similar or same way that you do. So take solace in that, and if it takes watching these kinds of videos to cheer you up, then by all means, watch these kind of videos, and I hope you feel better. And if you're having a good time, then Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Alright, I'll see you in the next video, if you want to see my next video. 1% better every day, baby. Muffin is scared of guests, so he's trying to hide inside here. Poor thing.
Aww, I love Muffin.
Look at Muffin. Poor Muffin. So scared. Mochi is now recovered enough from her knee surgery to go on walks. She's been begging to go outside. She loves the snow. Now she's making tea. Muffin and Tigger liking the new toy.
Thank you for watching / listening, everyone. I love stories like that. I'm so grateful that Sky Guardian pushed Paul to share that with us in the show and tell. And if any of you ever want to share something of your own, I'd love to hear your story. Do check out the submission form in the link tree in the bio. I've had yams, or sweet potatoes, sorry, that look just like that. Accidentally, my mother grew sweet potatoes in the pots that line the driveway of my house, and the vines were called Japanese sweet potato vines, but she didn't think they'd actually grow into sweet potatoes. So when she was cutting off the vines after they had died out and repotting new flowers and whatnot, she discovered that the pots were filled with these Japanese sweet potatoes. And we didn't know what to do with them. I said, I'll eat them. And I did. I ate all of them. It took about a month, but they were my dinner for like weeks. And they were delicious. I love them. And I think that Paul may have had the same kind. All right. Well, I'm so grateful to have heard that story. There's so many wonderful messages that we can gain from that. How taking care of our mental health is so important, and it can take a long time. It can take years to get to where you want to be, and that's absolutely okay. I love how this video was like a personal diary that was open for everyone to read. That vulnerability is so beautiful, and I can't take any ownership, but as a fellow human being, I'm proud that Paul is sharing his story like that, and I really do hope that it reaches those that need to hear it, that is. I love how he's able to make friends with a person in going through a similar experience as he had. And Guy Guardian wanted me to mention that his video is a testament to karma yoga, which is actually something that Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita. The yoga of action, karma yoga. And it seems like Paul has been his own Arjuna and mastered the art of karma yoga in his journey. And just like he was saying at the beginning, that to an atheist, this world might even be more amazing in the fact that it kind of has come unto itself, through itself. Isn't that even more of a miracle in some sense? I think in the same way, even though Paul perhaps has not quite yet read the Bhagavad Gita, or didn't at the time, that it's a miracle that he was able to imbibe the same truths that Krishna told, that we have a duty to do our actions and not to any particular result or reward or to escape some punishment. Just as Paul was worried about being a sad old man, Arjuna was wondering about how he would live the rest of his days, and Krishna gently reminds him, do not worry about the outcome of how you live your life today. Just do your best today and you will be happy. All you have to do is take things one step at a time. The greatest gift is to express yourself, to engage in little acts of selfless service to others and towards this body and mind. And by the law of incremental growth, you will get better. Our mind has a beautiful ability to get better. Krishna also says that the mind is indeed very difficult to guide, to control. And so when Krishna says that, then it really is going to be a long journey, I'm sure, and that's okay. There's nowhere else you need to be other than where you are right now. Namaste.